I've gotten better about being okay with suffering losses. At first, when I became an entrepreneur, if I lost a little bit of money, I would be really upset. Now, I'm not happy that I lost the money or invested in something. Marketing is the easiest one. You can invest a lot of money and it amount to nothing. But, which I've done a lot, at the end of the day, I'm more comfortable with it because I know there's no way I'm going to make more money. If I don't make that extra higher, yes, I lost money because I made a bet on somebody, but it didn't work out. There's nothing you can do. Well, you got to just move on and just have an acceptable loss ratio. Whereas, look, I'm going to invest this percent in new programs, and I'm hoping in the next 12 months that it's going to pay off. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But otherwise, there's no way to grow. Otherwise, you're going to be a stagnant business.
Hey, Matt. How you doing today?
Good. Enjoying my view from Puerto Rico.
Oh, yeah? Nice life you got there, pal.
Yeah.
I guess that's the result. That's the result of a life of a successful founder, entrepreneur, which I want to talk to you about today.
Sure. I would say a roller coaster. I guess.
Yeah.
More success than failure. That's what I would like to believe, at least.
So how many companies have you founded?
Three. I say three, and I've scaled 4.
Okay, so that's great. So you came in after somebody else founded that one, and you scaled it.
Correct. Yeah. So 3, I started or acquired my own, and 4th that I just scaled. I came in as hired help.
So I guess you got to have a specific kind of thick skin and craziness to start 4 companies or to start 3 companies and come in and scale the 4th one. Because we all know that this is a tough business, and getting into the world of founder efforts and growth and scaling and people and mistakes and all that is not for the faint-hearted at all. And so that being said, you currently are quite successful in an outsourcing business. What's that all about?
Yeah. So right now I have a Filipino staffing agency. And so what we do is help clients get operational talent in the Philippines. So the work, non-tech talent. I've tried to talk about failures. I've tried to get tech talent, and I'm just not the guy, right? We weren't successful at that. So what we do is anything from a customer service to someone who can help run your company.
So as a founder, you're saying tech talent difficult. Why? What's going on there?
I think just, one of the things I've learned, and this is going, you can have a good idea, you can have a good business, and you can just be the wrong person. And I just don't know how. I've yet to figure out. I don't know how, but I've yet to figure out how to source solid world-class talent out of the Philippines. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just means despite my best efforts and multiple times, we've never been able to do it. So I just don't try. I focus on, I just play to my strengths which is finding the operational talent.
And why the Philippines when there's a whole world out there that's full of great talent?
Yeah. So what happened is why the Philippines? So when 2017, I acquired an e-commerce business and grew that. And that was my first exposure to Filipino quote unquote VAs, which is kind of what that's what they call anyone who works who's from the Philippines and works for someone in the United States. So what happened was in the pandemic, so this was a wedding business, which is the best business in a good economy, a bad economy, but it's the absolute worst business during a pandemic because weddings were illegal. So suddenly I had, a few people in the Philippines, and I said to them, and I'd used agencies previously, I had hired previously, and I said to the person who ran my company, who's Filipino, I said, why can't we just find people like you in the Philippines and start an agency? All my friends bitch and complain that they don't like the current process. So why don't we just go do that? And that's how I started, and that's why the Philippines. It's nothing, more complicated than that. And I grew it from there.
Right. And so doing it here What's so difficult doing it here? Why the Philippines or why elsewhere? Essentially, you're offshoring is what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mean why versus hiring US talent?
Yeah, talk to me about, you did probably have this conversation 100 times a week. Founders in the US have to deal with finding all kinds of talent, and it's really tough and it's expensive. And you've got a solution that can help them be more efficient. What's it like for a founder, and what can you offer for advice to a founder related to staffing tech people, or for that matter, staffing anybody, and doing it outside the US?
Yeah. So I've hired tech people, and I've obviously built an ops company, right? So for tech people, I think specifically Eastern Europe, South America, I think really, I mean, I was living in San Francisco. Anyone outside Silicon Valley, but outside the US, there's world-class talent everywhere these days. And you'd be crazy not to build a global first company. Even when I had my e-commerce business, doing a few $1 million a year uh, in revenue, I had a full-time employee in the Ukraine, and he was fantastic. I never could afford that guy in the United States. He would have been at least $200,000, right? And he came into a complicated situation. He figured it out and was just amazing to work with, right? And I was able to cost arbitrage, right? So you're able to spend money and go to the top of the food chain very, very easily in other countries. And so, well, why not do so, right? And for the Philippines, it's the same thing. You can hire talent that would be 3x the cost, like operational talent to run things for you. And they're wonderful to work with. They're loyal. So that's the one thing specifically about Filipinos, that market. You treat them well. You treat them like family. They will take care of you and be loyal, right? I know a lot of people have their attrition problems in the United States. And even in the Philippines, if you talk to people who hire Filipinos, if you don't treat them like family, you will have attrition. But if you do, they'll never leave. I like to say I've fired a lot of people, but rarely has anyone left me at my company in the Philippines, because I just treat them well.
Well, I think that goes without saying. People are people, regardless of where you're from. You treat them well, and hopefully they become loyal. Although we're starting to see some loyalty issues in big tech firms here in the US, where, an email goes out to 300 people. Hey, you lost your job this morning. Sorry about that. Go see HR, and they'll hand you your information on the way out. I mean, what a shit show that is. What's your thoughts on that as a whole? And do you go after some of these companies, or do you work on a smaller level?
Yeah, I actually have a great story about that. I saw this happen in Silicon Valley, 2000. No, it'd be like 16, maybe somewhere right around there. It was a company that does the same thing I do now, except everyone was onshore. And I came in as interim COO to help straighten out some things. And, the company didn't make it. And I told the CEO that, hey, by the way, just one thing. I know it's 300 people, 350, 400 people, something like that. Do not fire everyone over a conference call. I'm sorry, over email, not a conference call. So take a conference call. You don't even have to answer any questions. Just give people the respect to hear your voice, and give some, so they understand that this isn't something lightly, that you're shutting down the company. What happened? The CEO, midnight, 1 a.m. on a Sunday, sent an email to all the staff saying, hey, we're shutting down. Goodbye. You don't have jobs. Next day, Forbes.com, front page of the website. So yeah, it happens. It's unfortunate. It's terrible. First of all, just remember, people are people. And not to mention there are laws around it. You can't just fire 300 people in the United States. You're not allowed without warning, or, so it's, or severance or something like that. There's something called the Warrant, WARN, Warrant Act, that you have to comply with. It's over 50. All right? It's terrible. Just treat people like people. So my opinion on people who do that, I get it. I mean, I was a management consultant. You got to do what you got to do. even in my own companies, I've had to I've had business operations, my wedding business, operations changed. I mean, the world shut down. What was I supposed to do? How to let people go? However, I tried to do it humanely as I could, but just tell people the truth. Don't lie. Hey, something happened. We didn't get funding. Don't just let people go with as if they're a widget. I think that's what really bothers people.
Well, you're talking about leadership now. You're talking about the importance of leading people in the right way and treating them respectfully and do it with integrity. And it's pretty critical to do that. I want to talk about pivoting for a second because, you mentioned that you had a wedding business and it was doing well. And then all of a sudden COVID comes in and you're fucked. And at that point, you somehow figured out that you've got some great talent that was helping you with your wedding business, and you decided, hey, why don't we just do more of this for companies that now need people elsewhere for more efficient, more, better productivity. How did you figure that out?
Yeah. So I personally believe, when you get punched in the face in business are some of the greatest opportunities to pick yourself. You realize some of the greatest opportunities, right? I had actually, because I was involved in the staffing business, in around 2016, I always loved it. I just never pulled the trigger. So when I lost everything, and I think business was down, the worst day was 95% year over year. What am I going to do? Yeah, I mean, so it was hard. I just figured out what I had to figure out. Licked my wounds for about a week or two, and then I said, okay, well, I'm not packing it in. So now what? What assets do I have at my disposal, and how could we do something with it, right? And I just knew, because I had this problem. Finding people in the Philippines is a process. So it's not hard to find people. That's actually the easy part. You can have an ad on a Filipino job board, and you can get 1,000 applicants. But finding the right person, weeding it out, figuring out who's going to work because of, cultural cues you may not pick up on right away, and who's going to just leave you. It just takes time. So I knew that there was a problem, because when I first started hiring Filipinos, I did it myself. And, I had, frankly, mixed success. And so I knew what the problem was. And once I found that key person who ended up running my business and is still with me today, I just realized she's such a talent that you don't find often. Well, why don't we solve this problem together? I knew the problem exists for me. I knew it existed for my friends. So I just said, all right, let's just go try it. What's the worst that happens? All my friends say no. Okay. It's not the end of the world.
This isn't specific to the Philippines necessarily. The topic that you and I are talking about right now could be any country. In fact, I've got a client who's in the AI space, and he's from Pakistan, and his entire dev team is from Pakistan. And he puts out an exceptionally high quality product. His people he treats them really, really well. And he pays, I can't give you the numbers, but he pays very, very little on a monthly basis because their needs are different. And he's figured it out all on his own through necessity. But to your point, there's idiosyncrasies or culture specifics that you need to be aware of because he's from there. He knows them. You weren't from the Philippines, but you met somebody who was, and they helped you do this. So technically what we're talking about here is pick a country, one that has some decent talent and good education, and a lot of people that will work for a lot less than they will for here in the United States, and go with it. But it probably seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong, pick a country and stick with it, because you find a good tech in that country, that person's going to know 5 other people who each know 5 other people. And before you know it, they're all friends. They all know each other, and they're working for you, and they're doing a great job, and they're enjoying themselves because they're with people that they know already. Agree? Disagree? Am I on the right track here?
No, first of all, I would agree. What I would say is pick a country and then you have someone who knows how it works. So versus they just even their friends, because that actually, so ironically, that's exactly how it started for me. She hired internally like a really good friend of hers. That was her first hire. At, not first staff member in the Philippines, like for a contractor, but first hire, right? But I think also having someone who knows how it works and who knows how to hire, right? They know how the hiring system works. So they're going to help you filter. They're going to say, okay, Dan, we need to go to these 3 job boards, these 3 Facebook groups, and just post. And I'll filter, I'll interview, and then you do the final say. And that's how we started, right? Until I got to a point where I trusted her judgment implicitly, and then I stopped interviewing. And then I have a team, right? And I said, now I'll do multiple interviews just to make sure that, the quality's still there. So absolutely, just go deep on a country. You can always change, right? I mean, it's, there's just, it is amazing. There is talent everywhere. And I actually think the thing I like the most is people appreciate that they have a good job. It's not that, people in our country don't. Of course they do. But I think there's just a different level of appreciation, right? They just really appreciate it.
Your wedding business, you're going through this failure, 95% under expectations, and year over year, and you go to bed at night and you're just a freaking mess. What was that like for you? How do you get through that? What did you do to overcome the mental horror of feeling like a complete failure and knowing that you got to get back up with a black eye?
Yeah, so COVID was a convenient excuse. I mean, like, just because it's not an excuse. I would say not an excuse, but like realistically, everything shut down, right? So it lessened the I suck part of it, right? Because I mean, you couldn't have weddings. It wasn't like I did something, right? You can argue I should have prepared for a black swan, but the truth is, in 2008, because what was worse is I bought the business, so I owed a lot of money for it. And then in 2008, this thing didn't miss a beat, right? And I was above where we were in 2008. But when they shut down the economy, there's literally nothing I can do, right? It's just, there's nothing. And so that actually made it a little easier. You have the, oh shit, what the fuck am I going to do? Because I owe a lot of money, right? But then the, oh shit, I have people counting on me, right? And so those 2 things were definitely stressors. I meditated a lot. I drank. It was COVID. Like, hey, I'm not saying it was a great solution, but it was COVID. And, but that was for like 2 weeks. And then I said to myself, like, what am I doing? Like, okay, this sucks, but you gotta do something. So it's just, are you going to pack it in and that's the end of your life? No, right? It's a business. It's not the end of your life. Okay, so pick up and do something. You say you're an entrepreneur. Okay, pick up and go do something, right? But the truth is, I looked at, because it was COVID, right? And before I got my company off the ground, I looked at like warehouse jobs, things like, listen, I went online and said, okay, what kind of jobs? I need money. I was fortunate. My wife was working. She's very successful, but I didn't want to be a burden. It's just not like I've supported myself since I'm 15. So I didn't want to be a burden to her, right? She wasn't asking me to go get a job, but I actually looked at alternative things I could do given what was happening, right? So I had to check my ego a little bit, right? And say, okay, well, and then I said, wait a second. Well, I think I should go start this company. And I just put my all into it. And that's it. But, you just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. I think that's the message. You do what you got to do, whatever it takes. And, maybe you hear all those sayings, no idea is a bad idea. The only one that is the one that you didn't think about or the one that you didn't mention or whatever.
Yeah.
But it gets hard. It gets hard. I mean, and you said sometimes I drank. But what about the people that you are, I don't want to say responsible for, but that you employed who you're like, hey, you know what? I got to shut down, or I got to make some changes. What's that like? And how do you lead in a good way, in a positive way? Because to the earlier part of our conversation, we're all human and we all deserve respect. And it's not a text that says, hey, you're fired.
Yeah, I called them and just and said, here's a situation we all know, and I can't afford beyond this date. At first it was a 30-day shutdown. Don't forget, right? That happened, and I told them, and I was like, hey, I just can't afford to pay you. That's it. And it again, because it was COVID, people had a lot more grace because the economy shut down. So in some ways, it was easier, right, for everyone because everyone was in a much more understanding mood. Because it's not like I was like keeping all sorts of money and like saying "F you, you helped me." It's simply that the business took a turn, and you just have to be honest and tell the truth. That's it. I don't think it's much more than that. Just tell the truth. Someone may say lots of not nice things to you. Okay, but what else are you supposed to do, right? Don't lie.
So when you have bad news and you know it's coming, do you wait and then tell them at the end, or do you bring them in ahead of time and say, hey, a hurricane is coming or tornado is coming. I want you to be prepared, so that you're giving them some notice.
This was, very, in this case, so I've had like people go for business conditions before. And, as soon as I know, I like to share, right? Because you do take the risk of someone bailing on you. But at the same point, I have a tendency to overshare with my business. And actually, that's probably not great, but I update my team on all sorts of things. Here's what I'm doing. Here's where I'm failing, right? I'm just letting you guys know what's going on. So when you don't see action or you don't see the business growing, you're not sitting there worried for your jobs. And so I think just communicate as soon as you can, right? I do this with my current business. If we didn't grow for a period, I said, hey, it's a recurring revenue business. Here's what we're going to do in the meantime. We're not growing right now. I don't want you to worry for your jobs. Here are the projects you're going to do. And as long as we are making money and we don't lose clients, we're good, right? We'll get through this rough patch. In a business that's not recurring revenue, it's a little harder because now your monthly revenue went down.
I've worked with founders who operate in both ways, meaning I've worked with some that share everything with the employee base. And then I've worked with others who keep everything super tight and don't tell you what's going on until it's way late. And at that point, a lot of people have figured it out. You can read the tea leaves. And I believe that those founders, those leaders who share a lot are way more successful. And quite frankly, people recognize that, stuff happens, but I'd rather work for somebody again, meaning a second time, who maybe I failed with the first time, and do it all over again. Not to fail, but to be with that person because I know what I'm getting and I know they're going to be open and straightforward with me. And I think that's a huge lesson in leadership. So you mentioned you worked with multiple companies, started multiple companies. Where else have you failed? And did you know it was coming ahead of time to the point where you shared with your team? Did it happen abruptly, like the COVID thing? Give me some examples of some stuff that where it has not worked out.
Yeah. So let's see. So my first company, where I was born as the junior founder, we blow through way too much cash, right? And I think squandered huge opportunity. It was a restaurant chain, healthy restaurant chain, and we grew it, but I think we didn't grow it carefully. And so, we had 14 locations at one point, and then, but nationally, like it was all over the place. We didn't concentrate, build like, some sort of base somewhere, then expand.
Geographically.
Right. That's what we should have done. We went to too many geographies too quickly. as well as our build out was too expensive. Food was great, but we really screwed up. I lost money. My family lost money, which was worse than me losing money, right? Investors lost money. Like, it sucked. Like, we screwed up. There's nowhere else to say, right? And, that was my first lesson. And it was the first time I've ever lost my own money. So it was really, or really someone else's. Because before that, I worked for companies, right? It's a big difference when, you screw up a business and, it's kind of like, okay, then, oh, wait a second. I put, a couple $100,000 into this thing and then poof, it's gone. Or my family put in a lot of money. Poof, it's gone, right? You feel like you let people down. That was a big lesson. That was hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've never been in a situation like that. But, I know how difficult that is. So that's the restaurant business. What are some of the correlations and learnings that you could take to the tech business or the SaaS business that come from the restaurant business?
So to a tech business, I think it's just people. I mean, that's it. Look, when you're in the services business, so I came from tech consulting to management consulting, tech consulting, business school, management consulting, the restaurant business. Then I bought the e-com business. So I did some in-between startups, like I told you about that one. It's just people. That's it. People are your company. Especially the services business, they are your products. So take care of your people. They take care of your clients better. It's just a better experience for everyone, in my opinion, at least.
So I see a lot of tech founders, tech-centric founders, engineers who are building great solutions to very important problems. And because they come from the engineering space and they build stuff and it's their passion, they think the product and the tech is more important than the people. And I disagree with that. I think that, because look, you ask the tech people and they'll say, yeah, you have nothing to sell without our stuff. And then the people on the sales side would say, yeah, you have no money and no go-to-market offering that anybody even knows about without us. And both are right. What's your position on that?
Well, if you're going to build a product, the technology is important, but it's to your customers, need it, right?
That's a whole other conversation.
I think it's the people, your customers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's, this is, sales and tech. It's kind of an age old thing that they constantly they're going ahead. I'm more important. My customers are more important. I'm more important. The truth is you can't have one without, you can build the coolest solution in the world. The best solution. I think Beta was that was the first case study. Better technology than VHS cassette tape. I'm dating myself.
That kind of Beta, right? Yeah.
Right, but not
video.
Right,
yeah.
Yeah, but no one adopted it, so it doesn't matter, right? I'm sure in your career you've seen better tech products that have failed because it just didn't meet what the customer needed, but what the tech person or the engineering team thought the customer needed. I'm sure you've seen these before.
So I'll tell you a quick story in my world. One of my first companies was in the world of behavioral targeting, and I was head of go-to-market. We had the finest tech available, and we would joke around in the sales world of the company. We would say, we've got a Lamborghini, and it is so powerful and so amazing. And we had a competitor. And the competitor's product, they would admit, because I know the founder of that company as well, they would admit, no, yours is way better. But they did a much, much better job of making it simple and easy and going to market with it. And then all of a sudden, one day, I find out that my biggest customer bought their company for a shit ton of money. And I couldn't believe it. And look, we still existed at that point and we still were cranking it out. And I would say, you know what? There are a lot fewer Lamborghinis that are sold out there. And granted, they're sold for a lot of money. It's a very small market that buys Lamborghinis. But there are a hell of a lot more Toyota Camrys sold. And they were a Toyota Camry. They got you from point A to point B very easy. It was simple. It was very affordable. It did the job just fine. And that's what customers wanted. We got our asses kicked. And it happens. And so there's a lesson here. There's a lot of lessons in there that number one, keep it simple. Number two, you don't need to be tinkering with your Lamborghini because you're a tech person just because you can build it. Doesn't mean you should. What you really should do is give the market what it wants and be able to sell a ton of them so you can make money that way. Look, there's always going to be the Lamborghinis and the Rolls Royces of every industry that have a few customers, but is that your end game? Is that what, if you have investors, is that what they want? Do they want, a small business that's very, very high end, or do they want a larger business that maybe takes less margins, that isn't as sophisticated and, has the cachet, so to speak? Who knows?
Well, if they want investors, they want the one that's going to make them the most money.
Okay.
I think that, as an investor, you're probably ambivalent.
Well, but you know what will make them the most money? Ultimately, what you're talking about is that which yields the best margin.
Yeah. I mean, look, what's getting you the best return? I think, look, that's the fun part about business. There's no right answer, right? Yeah, it's that's an interesting thing, and I'm sure it's not uncommon, right? Where at the end of the day, people just want something that works, and it's look. I think my iPhone is amazing. I don't know how to use everything in it. I have no idea. So they have all the stuff that's built for me or people. Do you not? Do you need it? I think that's just keep it simple, right? Oh, yeah. I actually may go to a dumb phone because, I go like this too much sometimes. And so I'm just, want to get rid of all the apps, get rid of everything just so I can, not constantly be on my phone. So maybe I'm unique.
I don't know, but there's a lot of people that would appreciate the word dumb phone. Just give me a dumb phone.
That's how they sell it. No,
there's always that kid in your group that you make fun of, that person in your group that you make fun of, where you're like, that guy's got a flip phone. Hey, Steve, how's your flip phone?
The phones are the best. Reading StarTAC, you can run over that. And I don't know if you ever had a StarTAC back in the day.
I have a Motorola made it.
You can run over that thing. It wouldn't matter. That was the best cell phone. I'm sorry. It was indestructible.
It was pretty down. I had a BlackBerry I was pretty impressed with until I had my head down and I was walking out my front door and I sprained my ankle heavily on my front steps because I had my head in my ass doing my BlackBerry. And so the only thing I can think about whenever I think about BlackBerry is my messed up ankle. But
did you ever see the movie?
No.
Go see. Oh my God. There's a movie about the BlackBerry. Go see it.
It's RIM. The company was in Toronto, Research in Motion.
Yeah. There's a whole movie about it. It's a dramatization, but it's really good. You should see it.
That's amazing. So, any other messages for the founder that, hey, look, I'm a founder and I've done this a bunch of times. I've messed stuff up before. What I heard clearly from you is people are your single biggest, most important element of your organization. And you're in the people business. You're helping companies to solve people needs. You're doing it in a smart way. You inform your people and you lead your people well. And then there's on the other side the tech conversation, which is, well, the people can't do it unless they have some really good tech. So there are some lessons here. What else can you tell the founder that is extremely important from your perspective, having done it successfully and unsuccessfully?
Yeah. So first of all, this is the one thing it's a great question. Here's what I've learned. What is your job? So I think it's just a simple thing, right? What actually are you being paid to do? Hopefully being paid. But your job is probably not to do 80% of what you're doing, right? And when you're starting up, okay, yes, you have to do it all, right? But there comes a point in time, right, when either you have money in the bank from raising or you have money to spend because you're generating income. Comes a point in time where you have some money. Well, what are you doing that you shouldn't be? And I would argue every 3 to 6 months, you need to fire yourself from your job and elevate yourself. And if you don't do it, you're going to be stuck. End of story. Stop. Stop. I spoke to a potential client who's a lawyer. I'm sorry, he was a financial advisor. He runs a big FA firm. And he said to me, I'm doing some ungodly number of emails a day, right? This guy, and money isn't the issue there, right? So money's not the issue, but he's doing some ungodly emails and a number of emails. And I said to him, I don't understand. I go, clearly you suck at your job. He goes, what do you mean? I go, well, you're doing emails all day, so you clearly aren't good at what you should be doing. And he laughed, right? He's like, you're right. I need to go hire someone. I'm like, yes, you need to get this off your plate and only focus on things that matter. So I think evaluate what you do every 3 to 6 months and kind of have a plan for that. And my own example is I'm launching a new service line, and I wanted to just figure this out to understand how to tell my team what to do, right? So I'm figuring it out. I know I'm doing things poorly. The example is I'm doing an outbound campaign. I know I'm not doing it the best way it should, but it's fine. It's actually working great. I'm doing the sales. It's working fine, right? And, within the next 2 weeks, I'm offloading the sales to a member of my team, and I'm hiring someone to do my outbound marketing, right? I realize this is not my job. I just want to get a taste so I understand what I'm asking. So after you get a taste of things, so you're competent, go pay someone else to do it. That's it. End of story. Value your time, right? If you value your time at $100 an hour, then if you're spending time on something that would cost $45 an hour for someone else to do it, well, then you're valuing your time at $45 an hour, right? Go give it to someone else, right? And you would say, this is the thing that people say, well, I can't afford a full-time employee. I can't afford someone for $100,000. Okay, go to Upwork. Go, even if you can't afford someone offshore, because you only need this task 3 hours a month, 5 hours a month, whatever it is, go to Fiverr. There's talent everywhere, but don't do it yourself, right? Because that's like the founder control thing. Like I got to do it. I'm the smartest person, which I think you find a lot. You have to think very highly of yourself to start a company, because everyone says no sane person would do it. You have to overthink. You have to think you're much better than you really are. I get that. That's what I do. I think I'm better than I am, but you got to realize you're not. And there are people that are better than you or more suited for the task, and they can do it more diligently. I'm not going to do an email as diligently as my admin because I don't want to do it. That's her job, right? So that's kind of the advice I would give. Fire yourself, evaluate what you do, and determine what your job actually is. Because the truth is, it's to create a great company and develop the systems and processes and put the right people in place. That's your job. Everything else is just noise.
Do you think that the founder should do pretty much every job that's realistic? Like, you're not going to be, if you're not a software developer, you're not expected to write code. But do you think the founder should do, in an early stage, some of the marketing, being a salesperson, support customers, troubleshoot problems right out of the gate? And if so, for how long?
Yeah. So sales, yes. Who's going to sell the product better to start, right? And by the way, how are you going to know if someone's selling it poorly if you can't sell it yourself?
There you go. You're on to something.
Right?
Matt.
So, because think about it, Dan, okay, you hire someone who suck, right? They suck. Then all of a sudden, their numbers, Matt, you don't understand. And this happens to me. Matt, you don't understand. It's not the right leads. No, it's like, I know it's you because I'm watching this and I see where it's all going wrong, right? So unless you sell yourself, you're not going to. Marketing, I guess the answer is it depends. Are you really a designer? Are you really going to do, pay-per-click? Probably not. Well, you have to outsource that.
Yeah.
Right? Just hire somebody.
Realistic.
Yeah.
You're not writing code. You're not graphic designing. You're not. Yeah, I get that.
Sales, basic operations, right?
Yep.
Just making things work. Sales, if it's tech, you got to get a developer. And that's really it. The finance stuff, you get a bookkeeper. It's super easy, right? You're not going to sit there and do QuickBooks yourself. You could. It's not really a big deal. Okay. But I would say sales and ops you need to do, unless you're the tech founder, right? But sales and ops. And then after a while, after a certain lead velocity, right? Because all about velocity. If you're not getting a lot of leads, do it yourself. If you are getting a lot of leads, then you got to hire somebody. So that's when at the point where I say go hire a salesperson.
Sounds like what you're really talking about here is good practice would be, as a early or growth stage founder, write your job description and review it every 3 to 6 months to see, is it the right job description and am I actually doing it? And what's cool is what you'll realize is, to your point, lots of stuff that I think should be on here probably shouldn't, or stuff that is or was on here shouldn't be on there anymore. I need to get rid of it, meaning get it off my plate and get somebody to do it for me. But I think there's a lot of learning there to write your own job description. The recruiters will tell you that. The good ones will say, go write the job description. And then when you go interview, show them this is how I would basically approach that role. And here's a job description. Or I rewrote your job description to the one that I think it should be. And here you go. And I've heard that kind of advice before, and it's smart. May not be for everyone. So you think that, you call that, and I'll say it, it's writing your own job description. You call that you should fire yourself.
Yeah.
Have you fired yourself?
Regularly. I mean, I think sometimes I've done less. I haven't always been. I find myself sometimes doing things because I find them interesting, but I realize that I shouldn't be doing it. Right. So I went through some self-evaluation recently, and I realized that I'm like, all right, you shouldn't be doing this. What are you doing? Right? You're not the best at it. Just go get somebody. So yes, I have. I fired myself. Well, so I read a book. So Dan Martell is a really famous entrepreneur. I read his book recently, and he actually, I think, puts it even better. There are 5 stages of running a company. It's the first stage you got to essentially fire yourself from or outsource is you have to outsource admin, right? Then if you're the next level of entrepreneur, you're outsourcing your customer onboarding and operations, and marketing, then sales, then leadership. And then you're just, you're just CEO, or you're even just the owner, right? So that's the same concept, right? You just move yourself up the food chain.
It's no different than life in your home on the personal end. So here in my home, my first home, I remember I bought a lawnmower and I cut my lawn. And then I got to the point where I had kids and I thought to myself, well, on a Saturday, after a long week of work to make a living to support the kids and the family, I don't want to fucking cut the lawn. So I hired somebody to do it. And I found that the time that I spent with my kids was far more valuable than the time that I would spend cutting the lawn. And so that was one thing. And then maybe something electrical went wrong in my house. And I'm thinking, well, I don't have the skill for this and I don't want to mess with electricity. So I'm going to hire somebody for that too. And you're really saying the same thing. And at the end of the day, you run your household in your own style, but it's very similar to a business. It's got money coming in. It's got money going out. It's got responsibilities, chores, and things that need to be done. So why wouldn't you, as a founder, and this is kind of a rhetorical statement, why wouldn't you run your business in a very similar way? And that's what you're saying. And every now and then you take a look in the mirror and you say, okay, how should I let me re-examine what I'm doing and whether or not I'm taking on the right stuff or I'm taking on the wrong stuff. And how do I just, reset and get it right? And if I have to fire myself, you fire yourself. And when you do that, do you send yourself an email to say you're fired, or do you look in the mirror and say,
I think I just feel good that I don't have to do it anymore. I just put a picture of Trump saying, "Hey, you're fired." No, I think on it, it's just one of these things that every time I've eliminated a role that or a task I've been doing, I'm like, why haven't you done that before? And the pushback I get from people when I talk to them about this, right? And it's not yes, it's self-serving because I own a staffing agency, but it's not that. The pushback I get, I can't afford it. But every time I've done this, it frees you up to make more money. So yes, you may take the short-term financial hit, right? So, let's say I hire new staff and yeah, I take a short-term financial hit, but it's one less thing I have to do, right? Like, so it frees me up to go focus on making more money. The example would be, if I was running my staffing agency, right, day to day, I'm not. I haven't for years, right? For 3 years, right? My team in the Philippines runs it day to day. And if I was doing that, there is no way that I actually scaled another company at the same time. I'm launching a service line, right? That's potentially going to make the company a lot of money, right? I'm doing these other things that have freed me up to make multiples of the current cash flow, right? There's no way I could have done it otherwise, but you have to be able to take the short-term hit, right? It's different, but it's also different. If you're a venture-backed founder, it's spend. So maybe you have that less problem. You have a runway problem. So you'd be more optimal with your cash flow. It's like, okay, how do I spend the least to get the maximum value, right? That's where I think your tech versus sales kind of thing comes in, right? Where founders, if it's your own money, which it is mine now, it's literally, how do I actually spend more money to make even more money? Right? And the hardest part being self-funded. So my past 3 businesses have been self-funded. And the hardest part about that has been when I lose money, it's my money. Like, that's the part.
You're thinking a lot more about the decisions that you make when you're playing with your money versus when you're playing with the house's money. And
yeah. I don't know if that's
anybody that's been to Vegas knows that.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's like, it's hard. I've gotten better about being okay with suffering the losses. Right? So if you know anyone who gambles, they'll tell you got to be okay losing, right? At first, when I became an entrepreneur, man, the money hurt more. But if I lost a little bit of money, I would be really upset. Now, I'm not happy that I lost the money or invested in something. And, marketing is the easiest one. You can invest a lot of money and it amount to nothing. But, which I've done a lot, as my wife likes to remind me about all my, schemes. But at the end of the day, I'm more comfortable with it because I know there's no way I'm going to make more money. If I don't make that extra higher, yes, I lost money because I made a bet on somebody, but it didn't work out. There's nothing you can do.
Fail fast and move on.
Well, you got to just move on, right? And just have an acceptable loss ratio. Whereas, look, I'm going to invest this percent in new programs, and I'm hoping in the next 12 months that it's going to pay off. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But otherwise, there's no way to grow. Otherwise, you're going to be a stagnant business.
I'll tell you what, I'll end this with a quick story. Years ago, when I sold advertising, J&J was my client. And I was among the first, I should say, the pioneers of internet advertising, digital advertising. And J&J, when I went to see the client, they had a mandate that came down from the CEO that said 10% of your budget, marketing's budget, was to try new things. And the internet was a new thing. And it was hugely successful because what J&J leadership actually did was give people a license to fail. But only 10% of the budget. So it was discretionary to do whatever the hell you wanted. And they were unbelievable. They came up with some of the most amazing innovations and ideas of how to spend that 10%. And they were a thought leader. And it was awesome when you take away the fear of failing from your organization. And so message to founders is take away the fear. Let people fail and learn how to fail gracefully, learn how to recover and move on quickly. But you'll get the best thinking when people aren't afraid that they're going to lose their job if they make a bad decision.
Yeah, that's wisdom right there. I mean, it is. Because I can just tell you from my own career, right? And learning how to become an entrepreneur, which I'm still in the process, right? It's just a constant learning experience, is that my biggest successes have come on backs of my failures. Right? Because I wouldn't have thought, because I failed at certain things, you have to okay, I don't want to fail again. How do I think differently? And it's been helpful for me at least. And, I've told my team, I'm not going to fire you for making a mistake, right? It's just, you
Don't
got
make
to
it again. Yeah.
don't make it again. What is okay?
This is all the stuff that's in the books, the self-help books and the business books and all that stuff. And it's all good stuff, 100%. We can talk about it all day. Anyway, I got to run, man. It's been super awesome talking to you. And again, the look, the bald glasses thing, we got it rocked.
Great
Couldn't have a conversation like this without acknowledging it, right?
Yeah.
All
Look
right,
at same glasses. Similar glasses.
everything. We probably read the same fashion magazines. See you, buddy.
Bye.
Take care.